I now introduce to you our featured speaker, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, our Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, our political leader of the People's National Movement and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Susan Hong, for that rousing welcome. Thank you all very much here in the Point Kumana Community Center. Deputy Political Leader, Mrs. Joan Yule Williams, Chairman, Lady Vice Chairman of the PNM, Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis, also Minister of Planning and Development, my other cabinet colleagues, and I particularly want to welcome our Chief Councillor from the furthest point east in Trinidad, Councillor Terry Rondon, who's always with us. And from almost the furthest point to the southwestern corner of Trinidad, Mayor Abdon Mason. And I see two San Fernandans. Welcome to Diego Martin West. And of course, my cabinet colleagues, members of parliament, members of the corporation, and particularly today, members of the new incoming executive of the Diego Martin West constituency. I know you won't begrudge me one moment to acknowledge a very special, my campaign manager of many, many years, many, many victories, Mrs. Jackie Lazarus. On loan to me from her husband, particularly every election time. And most importantly today, I must acknowledge in this audience the presence of one of my favorite colleagues of all time, Mr. Wendell Motley, here with us this evening. As I reflect on the 28 years that I've been representing you here in Diego Martin West, I have very pleasant memories of doing things and learning from an outstanding citizen, holder of the highest award that this country could award to any citizen, Mr. Wendell Motley. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard Mr. Hines in his presentation, and under normal circumstances, that would have been enough fare for us to go home with. But as your representative here in Diego Martin West, I'm here today to talk to you about things in general and things most important. And that is why I crave your indulgence for a few moments to talk about the things that are in front of us today. You know me as your representative. I've been representing you in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago since 1991. And on many occasions, I've come back to you and you continue to identify me as the person that you want to represent you. Because you see me in a particular way. You have to have seen me as someone who has the competence and the caring to represent your interests at the national level. You have to see me as an advocate to request and demand on your behalf what is there for you at the national allocation, and also to be able to have a wider perspective of Trinidad and Tobago beyond our constituency boundary. You also know of my personal life, where I've come from, Mason Hall in Tobago. I raise a family, I have children, I have friends, and I have you here in Diego Martin West as my wider family. But don't for 1 minute believe that that's how others see me, especially since you have, with your consistent support, protected me from political harm and allowed me to rise to the position of authority of holding the post of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Some people would like to have seen me as a thief, and as a result of that, They tried to get me implicated in matters which required my attention, my attendance at least 2 commissions of inquiry. The same people wanted to see me as a rapist. They didn't only think it, they put it on Hansard. They also wanted to identify my bloodline as coming from that. So they put my father on Hansard. Some people want to see me as a pedophile, so they put it on a banner in their constituency for elections. And that is why I always rely on you, the people of Diego Martin West, to hold a candle to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You know who I am. And if you believe that it has ended, you are sadly mistaken. You may recall that twice, while representing you during that 28-year period, twice, I was put out of the parliament for questioning the behavior of other members of parliament who were handling your affairs. Expelled from the parliament as member of parliament for Diego Martin West indefinitely for raising the corruption at Piarco Airport. And expelled as opposition leader indefinitely because I took to the parliament documents, emails that implicated certain people. I am supposed to have been responsible for that. I am to be expelled from the parliament. You are to have no representative in the parliament. You are the only constituency that twice the parliament was in session and you had no voice because your member of parliament was expelled from the parliament. But when Volney, a former judge, a member of the cabinet, central point in section 34, comes out and tells this country that what he knows and what he sees is true, that changes no mind. You still have people pretending that they are beyond reproach. So last Monday night, someone sent me a text about a speaker who happens to be from Diego Martin West. One of my constituents, they say, was on a UNC platform doing the very thing that Vanilla Allen did, and the very thing that they want to stereotype me as. Here was a platform on the usual Monday night forum. I don't listen to them, so somebody told me about it. Until I checked and saw the video clip myself. 2019, after years of trying to paint me according to their likeness and image, an image that you don't know and you will reject, here is a constituent from Diego Martin West, a member of the media, on a UNC platform, accusing me of being responsible for domestic violence in her household for the last 20 years. And worse, accusing me of manhandling her child, her young female child. In other words, the stereotype of the violent black sex-oriented man. That is what is on the UNC platform still. Still. And if you all think that it has ended, stand by, there'll be more. But I have confidence in God. I have confidence in you. And I have confidence in myself. So I intend to ignore all the personal attacks and caricatures, except, of course, if they break the law, meet me at the Hall of Justice. I've already collected a large sum of money from those who got run afoul of the law, and I'm quite willing and able, and I have empty pockets still. So carry on. But today, I want to talk to you about what is in front of us at the national level, your business. You would have heard and seen in the last few months a certain amount of carryings on, largely driven by lawyers. When it suits them, they get together in something called the Law Association. And they started carrying on and feeding the media with all kinds of support for requirements for this and requirements for that and meeting here and meeting there. Now, I must let you know, unlike some people who say that they don't read the papers, they don't follow the news, I, as Prime Minister, and even before I was Prime Minister, I make it my duty to follow the news simply because I want to know what the rest of the population is learning, is being told by others, so I can properly inform myself on any position I take. So I followed what was going on in the media about this whole situation about the judiciary. Because while I'm in government, I understand that the judiciary, the arm of the state that is called the judiciary, is an important part of national governance. And even though there's no role for me and my government in the judiciary, we are arms of the state and have to understand and work with each other along the way. So when I saw this whole thing about the Chief Justice and his colleagues in the Law Association having this to and fro, I paid attention. And it built up. And then all of a sudden, I got a piece of correspondence from the Law Association writing to me as Prime Minister, asking me about evidential matters in their carryings on. I immediately understood what was happening. Because if you had your eyes open, you too will understand what is happening. But here it is, I am being asked to be a witness in a matter that has nothing to do with me. And I'm being invited to do that by the Law Association. I refuse to reply to the Law Association's letter. Not because I'm disrespectful, but because I know my constitutional boundary. I am the only person in Trinidad and Tobago under our Constitution holding the office of Prime Minister, the only person who has the authority to trigger a tribunal to look into the conduct of the Chief Justice. That's a fact. So the minute I saw this spinning that way and the Law Association writing to me, asking me foolishness about whether in fact I know about the Chief Justice trying to get house for somebody and whether I left the Law Association severely alone. Because the day they draw me into that as a witness, how then could I, the holder of the singular authority, to treat with the Chief Justice's infraction, if there is one, if I am a witness in the matter? Not to mention that because I am named in the matter and I know what I am involved in, I know there's absolutely no truth in the matter that I am involved with the Chief Justice in anything. So at least that gave me an inside track as to what was happening. I didn't reply. That didn't prevent them. They carry on. And then the Law Association went and got two distinguished lawyers from outside of Trinidad and Tobago to adjudicate on the body of evidence or information that they had, and asked these two eminent lawyers to look at it to see if there's a case that the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister, at the request of the Law Association, must open a tribunal into the conduct of the Chief Justice. One of those lawyers said yes, the other one said not so. So their own lawyers that they went to, and this is not unusual, different lawyers might see things differently. Any of you here ever had a legal problem, even a medical problem? When you go for opinions, there's nothing that says that the opinion must be this, or Mr. A or Miss Y must give the same opinion. You don't measure opinions versus opinions, but you, the decision maker, even if you get 10 opinions saying go and one saying stand, it is your decision to stand if you so choose, having had the opinions, but not in Trinidad and Tobago. The Law Association, getting two contrary views from their own lawyers that they sought for that purpose, then sent to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, your humble servant, a huge volume, largely of hearsay, double hearsay, gossip, but all under the rubric of the Law Association, requesting that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago must now open a tribunal into the conduct to determine whether the Chief Justice should be removed from office. Ladies and gentlemen, I keep saying to my colleagues in the cabinet all the time, don't fall in love with this job. Do it to the best of your ability, but never fall in love with it. And I, as Prime Minister, I live by that same edict. I take this job and I take my oath of office very seriously, to act without fear, without favor, without malice, and without ill will. And having said that, when this very important request was made of me by the Law Association, one called Israel Raja Khan, he determined that if I did not take action within 6 weeks, he will sue me. Well, I'm still waiting for the lawsuit. Others were marking time, and I had the media asking me on a regular basis, what have you done, what have you done? It's a matter of national interest. I answered saying, I am seeking legal advice, and at the appropriate time, when I have something to say, I will say it to you. Some time would have passed, others would have questioned me. I said, when I have something to say, at the appropriate time, I will say it to you. What did your Prime Minister do? I went to London, got an independent Queen's Council. Our highest court lies in London still, run by those same Queen's Council. I refused to accept an opinion from the Attorney General's office because I know they would say he's biased and conflicted. I refused to ask a local lawyer, even a regional lawyer, for advice because they would say, it's my friend Stuart CARICOM. I went to London to a law firm where I know no one except the expertise of that firm. I provided the firm with the entire dossier from the Law Association and directed the firm to the previous attempt at removing our Chief Justice. Turns out, I didn't even know it then. Turns out that that firm was involved in the last attempt with respect to Chief Justice Sharma. So they know Trinidad and Tobago, and they know a lot more about our laws even before they got the brief. So I left it to them, and eventually I got a response. That response that came to me said to me, there is no basis for the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to do what is requested by the Law Association. One would have thought that that sane and sober action of a Prime Minister to have gone outside the field of conflict in Trinidad and Tobago legal fraternity, to get legal advice from abroad, and to act in keeping with the advice that I sought and I got, that would have caused some sanity to prevail in the confusion of the Law Association. No, sir. They want to know first, he didn't get any legal advice, so they demand for it to be shown. I have nothing to hide. They demand to know who was the lawyer. I made it all available. I published it on the website of the Office of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. You think they would respect their own colleagues? Look at what is being said about this English QC, an international expert who've worked for other countries on this matter, who in great detail outlined why the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago should not acquiesce to the wishes of the Law Association. Today, he's being pilloried left, right, and center. And of course, the office of Prime Minister is being brought into disrepute because the Prime Minister did not carry out the instruction of the Law Association to impeach the Chief Justice. That is not the new society that we are trying to build. The new society that we're trying to build is one that will have a law association that would know that it ought not to be at the behest, at the call, at the coming and going of a corrupt political party. The society we are trying to build is not one where the legal fraternity is one where a handful of people with serious political agenda could call a meeting in the Law Association. This one bring 20 of his party members, that one bring 10, and out of 4,000 lawyers that there are about 150 vote to remove the Chief Justice. Led by 2 of them who are on criminal charges in front of the court. And the same Law Association that has suddenly awoken from its slumber to cast aspersions on me and all those who gave advice in this matter. They had absolutely nothing to say when an officer of the court, like they all are, said to another officer of the court, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, that another officer of the court, Anand Ram Logan, and another officer of the court, Gerald Ramdeen, that they all have been conspiring against the people of Trinidad and Tobago, costing you serious millions, the Law Association had nothing to say, nothing whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever. And when the Prime Minister of the country sent that to the Attorney General not once but twice to investigate himself, and he buried it, the Law Association had nothing whatsoever to say. And that is the Law Association, which today is telling me they want to examine the opinion of the Englishman, and that they could cast aspersion on it, and that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has acted improperly because I didn't carry out the instructions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I work for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I don't work for the Law Association. They have absolutely nothing to do when there's wrongdoing in their ranks. But they want to come and tell the executive what to do when you act properly, openly, and transparently. They probably expected I would have hidden the advice that I got. But I could get 1,000,000 pieces of advice. The responsibility lies with the office holder to make the decision. Unfortunately, fortunately for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the advice as to what to do with the Chief Justice lies in the hands of the Prime Minister, who has made a sane and sober decision. I will tell you something else too. The basis for rejecting the request of the Law Association is simple. There was no evidence to support it. The very evidence that they put forward in the dossier were found to be contrived. And in my own case, where I am mentioned in there as somebody who the Chief Justice held bias for and acted with bias towards, I know that to be a lie. So I myself, without any outside lawyer, could dismiss that as being hearsay and lie. And they want me to act on that. But they have a problem which formed no part of the evidence put before me or my advising lawyer. And it is this. All of them who you see carrying on that story with the Chief Justice, they have a problem with the Chief Justice lifestyle. It was never recorded and presented to me. But they wanted to use me as Prime Minister to carry out their private and secret talks. I am not involved in that. Yet he who has something to say, come out and say it. And he who has something to do, come out and do it. And that goes for the media too. I'll tell you something else. I just mentioned to you the level of nastiness and danger that the UNC poses to this country and to me personally. They pose the same threat to you as a people. Last election, we, the PNM, took part in an election. It rained very heavily on that day. And towards the end of the day, the EBC did what most people would do around the world and would have done. And something changed. They extended the polling time by an hour. When that happened on that day, the UNC thanked the EBC for doing it, because they thought that it would have benefited them. All of us was exposed to it. At the end of the day, we won 5 seats, some by 3,000 votes. The UNC decided that these are marginal seats, and the seats must be declared vacant because the EBC did something wrong, and the results of the election must be overturned. Ladies and gentlemen, you would have to stretch your imagination a long way from that to what I just told you about the Chief Justice to see a continuous highway between the EBC and that. But you see, the UNC sees the local courts in Trinidad and Tobago as their political playground. And they believe that once they get the matter to the court, they have an upper political hand. I could tell you, the first thing they did was to go to court and accuse the Election and Boundaries Commission of acting improperly. They lost that case. The 5 PNM members who had to defend themselves, the argument made about the seats being overturned was lost. But halfway through the case, when the PNM said it should be thrown out of office, without even being heard because of nonsense, the court said, no, it should be heard. Oh yes, PNM lost. UNC had cost to collect. They said their cost is $15 million. When the case came to the end, when finally the appeal court ruled in the PNM's favor, and cost is now owed by the UNC, how much do you figure that cost is worth? Up to this day, we're still talking about assessing the cost. But the bottom line is, the UNC has that cost to pay because they lost the substantive matter. And of course, they still think that they could overturn the election results. So you know what they've done? They filed a petition to the appeal court. Listen to this very carefully, you know. At the same time, they're trying to entrap me and embroil me in some foolishness at the Law Association. They filed a petition to the High Court saying in the High Court that the election petitions which the PNM won in the court must be overturned because the Chief Justice acted with bias in coming to the decision that gave victory to the PNM on that matter against the UNC. Would you believe that? In attempting to overturn a court decision, this Law Association elements and the UNC fabricate this bias story and file a matter. The matter is in the court, going on in the court right now. And while the matter is going on in the court, they want me as Prime Minister to strengthen their argument in the court by opening impeachment process against the Chief Justice, and that will be the argument in the court to overturn the petition that the Chief Justice was in fact biased. Would you believe that? Would you believe that? And that is what this is all about, you know. Because if you look at who drove the impeachment proceedings at the Law Association, they had about 150 persons on that who voted on that day. Anand Ramlogan went with about 20. Saddam Hussein went with about another 20. Israel Khan went with about 20 and a few stragglers. Those are the ones who voted, you know. While you're on bail for attempting to pervert the cause of justice, you are a knight in shining armor standing up in defense of the judiciary in Trinidad and Tobago. While you're being charged with all manner of evil, you are the ones that the children would look up to for defending the judiciary. And the Prime Minister having not agreed, the Prime Minister and the government, the PNM, must be pilloried. We will ignore them totally. And the only thing that they are doing in your eyes is to encourage indiscipline in the judiciary and in the public service. That's what they're doing. And hoping that that will work for them politically, because it is a destabilization of our society. They want nothing good for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me give a little example. We are assessed by 3 international agencies who assess us on their own, look at our circumstance and make the regular assessment. Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch. Standard & Poor's came in, assessed us, gave us a fairly good report, but there was one thing there which said that we were downgraded by 1 notch because the gas future seemed to be one of reduction in production. Man, they happy like pappy. Standard & Poor's downgrade. Of course, that's not the overall story. Eh? We were upgraded from negative to stable. That was the overall grade, from negative to stable. They're not mentioning that at all. They're mentioning the 1 notch downgrade from BBB plus to BBB. A couple of weeks after, Moody's, independent of Standard & Poor's and of us, Moody's gave us a good report, saying that they acknowledge what we have done and what we are doing in the energy sector, And they are of the view that it will bear fruit for Trinidad and Tobago in our future, and they give us a positive report. You know they go out of the way to go as far as to say that we influenced Moody's for that report. Yeah. Nothing good for... You would think that citizens here would love to know that their country is being portrayed to the world, that one that is stable to attract investment for the future of all of us and to strengthen us in a weakening time. Not them people. They want the argument to be published that things are bad and rotten in Trinidad and Tobago, and when that doesn't happen, they blame the reporters from Moody's for giving us a positive report. But that shouldn't surprise you. We wanted to assess, to collect property tax. They themselves, you know, one of the last things the UNC did in office was to end the amnesty that was in effect on property tax. While they were in office, they gave an amnesty year by year. So tax that was due for a property, they gave you an amnesty. One of the last things the UNC did in 2015, in the last budget that they brought in 2014, was to end the amnesty, meaning that the tax now become due going forward. We came in as the replacement government, and of course, the tax is due. The UNC, again, as I just told you, off to the court they're gone, fighting in the court, confuse the matter in the court, have court proceedings going on, and I can tell you now, after 3 years, still in the court, and more than anything else, it will not happen during this government. So they accomplished that by taking this matter to the court and tying it up in the court with all their defense of the public. A public that was lining up on the pavement to go and pay the house tax, you know. You all recall that? There were people lining up at the revenue offices to go and pay their tax. There are people in this country who know that that tax is a fair tax and it contributes to national development. The UNC go to the courthouse and tie it up in the courthouse with their various lawyers. And it's going through the court process like molasses. And in the meantime, we have lost $4 billion in money that we could have had for the very same people they're claiming to want to love. That's the property tax. Then, of course, a commissioner of police, they fire the commissioner of police, you know, create a vacancy. Remember Iwatsky and Gibbs? Fire them. And for 4 years, they never even started the process to appoint a commissioner of police. We came into office after you elected us, gave us a mandate, and one of the mandates you gave us was to appoint a commissioner of police. But we had to start the process. We went into Parliament to appoint a commissioner of police. We had to change the regulation because there was no identifiable officer or officer who had the responsibility to initiate the process. We then corrected it by saying that the Minister of National Security, as required, whenever there's a need to, must be the person to call on. Just make the call. They say, no, 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 no. The minister must not have any role whatsoever because in their book, once they are out of government, minister must have no authority to do anything. Any law that comes to the parliament, you must not give the minister any authority. So they took it to court to query that. The court said, well, okay, since you are objecting to that, the court took out minister and say, leave it the way it is and go forward. That is how we were able to appoint a commissioner of police, you know. After, we had to go and fight them in the court and win, you know. Otherwise, all now so Stephen Williams is still commissioner of police, you know. Because when it was time for a vote, when the process was initiated and got eventually to the parliament for this vote after vote after vote after vote like I was judge, when that happened, when it came down to the last two, Stephen Williams and Gary Griffith, the parliamentary record will show that they voted for a retention of Stephen Williams. They were so happy with his performance, they voted for him to continue. And today, every time somebody gets killed or a car hit a lamppost anywhere, the government this and the government that, and crime this and crime that, but their record will show they had absolutely no interest whatsoever in confronting the criminal element in Trinidad and Tobago. None whatsoever. And then, of course, so first was election petition, then it's property tax, then it's commissioner of police, and of course, now it is Chief Justice to be impeached. That is their life in opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, you have to wonder if the PNM wasn't there, what would have been happening in Trinidad and Tobago. We went to the parliament with whistleblower legislation to protect whistleblowers who know, look, so much that's going wrong in this country, and we in the PNM saying, on every occasion, somebody knows. There are people who know what is wrong going on, especially in the public service, and we need to protect whistleblowers. The UNC voted against that, saying no protection for whistleblowers because they're not protecting snitch. Snitch, they call them. But of course, you know, there's one particular whistleblower who came out and blew a whistle on the UNC. Blew it so loudly that all of them ears cock up with the sound of it. Last year, at the PNM convention in Tobago, I took time to point out to you all the dangers that the current technology poses to us if we are unaware of cybersecurity and the lack thereof. And the reason being that we discovered after what the UNC was up to. The UNC brought into Trinidad and Tobago a company called SCL and set about to give them access to our private innards, the heart of our privacy at the personal level, all done in secret, to be able to focus on you as an individual in an attempt to win an election to go back into office to take over the country. Close to the election, you all may recall all of a sudden on your private telephone, cell phone number, Kamala Prasad was appearing, asking you to vote for her. And you started asking, how did this woman get on my phone? How you got on my phone? That was the outcome of the arrangement that they had made with Cambridge Analytica and his parent company, SCL. Today, let me explain to you what we're dealing with. Of course, when that came out publicly, it wasn't in Trinidad and Tobago it started. It was after the British Brexit election and the American election that we discover from Britain testimony in the British Parliament, Cambridge Analytica talking to the British Parliament in England, saying what they did in Trinidad and Tobago and who they did it for. And even as they were telling the British Parliament that they worked for and were paid in Trinidad and Tobago for that penetration of our privacy, you have the UNC spokespersons just saying, lying as usual, they don't know anything about that. Jack Warner don't know, Kamala don't know, COP don't, nobody knows. Today, the Express publishes something here which I want to read for you. And it starts with something called the Congress of the People. Remember that? Yeah. Congress of the People was an integral part of the UNC, in case you all don't know. Even today, Prakash Ramadar, a COP member, is in the UNC as a coalition member, hiding from the name COP, but voting full well. For the entire parliamentary term, Prakash is more UNC than the UNC members. So I make no distinction between the COP and the UNC in this matter, none whatsoever. And here is COP, and it's in the Express today, and those of you who didn't read it, let me read it for you. In 2013, you know, far back, in 2013, SCL Elections, that's the name of the company, SCL Elections, did a consultancy for the COP and said it had acquired the browser history of about 100,000 people. You know what browser history is? It means that every time you go to a site anywhere on the internet, this company, breaking the law, could find out who you talk to, what you're looking at, and probably why, and build up that database on you of the most private thing, whether you're going looking at girls, boys, bees, and birds, thieves or honest people. They have your record, and every time you go to that site, they have that access to privacy. This is a country where if you open anybody's letter, you could get locked up. It's a crime. If you get I have a post box. In this country, if an officer in the post office by accident puts a piece of mail in my post box that doesn't belong to me, I am compelled under law to protect that without opening it and take it back to the post office. But Cambridge Analytica and SCL could go into your database and see exactly what your tastes and preferences are, thanks to the UNC. The emails obtained by the Sunday Express, and by the way, it's not emails obtained by me, because they like to say I just make emails for them. This is emails obtained by the Sunday Express from former SCL employees and the COP leadership at the time. SCL sought to acquire data on marriage registry, divorce registry, hunting and fishing license registry, land registry, companies registry, IPL rights database, polling district level results, and turnout figures of past elections. In the documents, SCL reported that the information could be accessed by then Legal Affairs Minister Prakash Ramadar, the leader of the same party for which it had a consultancy. So Prakash Ramadar and the COP cannot run from the fact that they opened the door to our national privacy to a foreign company for election purposes. But listen to this. Ramadar had told the Sunday Express that SCL did a consultancy, so he admitted it. But the party could not afford it on a long-term basis. And they're quoting Ramadar here, and listen to the quotation. Quote, "I do remember there was a small team here, but the truth is we couldn't afford them. It was nothing extraordinary, doing work with press releases and public relations," unquote. That is Prakash Ramadar telling you, yes, SCL had a consultancy with us. You can't deny it. SCL is confirming that they worked with them. So he admitted it. But he's leading you away from the extent of the crime. It was only about press releases and public relations. But here's the joke. Listen to the price. SCL's chief executive at the time, Alexander Nix, agreed on $750,000 US for research and $250,000 US for creative. That is $5 million for public relations and press releases. No wonder COP couldn't afford it. But COP had a partner. COP is not saying we didn't afford it, but our partner could afford it, right? This is 2013, 2014. The UNC inside the treasury like a woodworm, right? So they had nothing that money couldn't buy. So Cambridge Analytica got hired and got paid. But of course, Prakash is like a bird that appears on the golf course. It's called a southern lapwing. It makes no nest. It lays on the ground. And when you're walking through the golf course, the parent attacks you, and it starts to try to lead you away from where the egg is on the ground. If it's a dog that's coming to the nest, it drops a wing, appears to be wounded, and limps away. And any direction you see the bird going, know that the egg is in the opposite direction. That is Prakash, southern lapwing. Because having admitted that they had the consultancy with SCL and CA, and it's only for press releases and public relations. Hear what SCL said their job was. And this is SCL talking to the world. We quote, "We have already acquired 208,000 registered telephone numbers and have begun attributing them to the latest voter information." 208,000 telephone numbers, and they began allocating them in a voter registration context. We have also obtained net usage records of 108,000 and counting unique IP addresses from Trinidad and Tobago with associated data, including continent, country name, region supervision, city name, postal code, latitude and longitude, center of the most granular location value return, postal code, city, region, organization or ISP, domain name, user type, including cellular connection identification, accuracy radius, country confidence factor, city confidence factor, regions confidence factor, postal code confidence factor, visited URL timestamp, user agent, and more. All you understand what that means? They had everything about you. Everything, including the technical data. And of course, they go on to say, from last week, we started the process of reaching back through past social media activity for significant events and obtaining all of the posts, tweets, and associated activity for Trinidad and Tobago. So if any of you go and visit any site that only want to keep super private, and if only send any tweet to anybody who only don't want to look to know, Cambridge Analytica has it. And you know what is worse? It's on a database in Russia. It ended up there. It ended up on a database in Russia. It means that if you have done anything in your private life that you are fearful of, you could be blackmailed at any time, anywhere by anybody who has that data. Because Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC gave this criminal company access to the innards of this country. It goes on to say, the document noted that SCL's support to the COP, quote, to date has included full-time support for 4 consultants during the local government elections, ongoing party capacity building, and press and public relations, support of the aftermath of the elections, the establishment of the constituent relationship management system for the COP, and carrying out a full program of behavioral science to inform the party's understanding of the Trinidad and Tobago's electorate and allow the CRM to be applied to the full program of micro-targeting to win over voters between now and the next general election, unquote. And that is what Prakash Ramadar tells you was for press releases and public relations, but the UNC couldn't afford it. The COP couldn't afford it. It goes on to say that according to SCL document, SCL personnel listed included Chris Wiley, Dr. Ben Clickard, and Dr. Alexander Kogan. You know Chris Wiley is? He was the one with the pink hair, who was in front of the British Parliament. as the whistleblower who blew the whistle on this company, which has a serious role to play in Europe. England right now, the sun is about to set on the empire. Anytime now they could break apart into pieces, because the new British Prime Minister is about to do something that will have real trouble holding the UK together, because the Scots have said, if after that Brexit election, if you all leave Europe with no proper accord, Scotland will not be with you. So maybe in our time, Scotland may be a different Scotland. And of course, just watch American television. Anytime, any station, and you know what's going on there. And of course in Brazil. We in Trinidad and Tobago, thanks to the People's National Movement, we are the only country that escaped Cambridge Analytica. At least temporarily, because when we fought them in 2015, fighting like how the PNM can fight and no other, we didn't know what we were up against. It was after we discovered what the UNC was up to. And of course, an election is coming, one called General Election of 2020. Out of the blue, the UNC opened up something called One Corridor. The One Corridor, I can tell you this evening, is a continuation of this penetration of you at the personal level. The company Cambridge Analytica has been dead and shut down, but the UNC lives to fight it in Trinidad and Tobago. That is what is called the One Corridor in Trinidad and Tobago, preparing for the general election. They've learned well, and that is why these lies that they come up with, naked, open lies, one of the strong points of that approach in politics today is leaders coming out and lying openly to the population. And when they lie to you and you point out the lie, instead of backing away and they double down on the lie, that is the modern way of doing business in these countries that have this as a template. That is what the UNC is offering you here. That's what the UNC is offering you here. So a member of the cabinet of the UNC, a former Judge Volney, could tell you on radio, they could sue him if they wish, they wouldn't try that. He told you on radio, speaking as a member of the cabinet, that there were UNC members of the cabinet who wanted the DPP removed. I am not saying that from me, I'm just quoting a member of the UNC cabinet. He said he understood the truth of what was in those documents because it applied to him in a private and personal and secret capacity. And when I confronted one of their spokespersons with that recently, they told me, Volney mad. Volney mad. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all appreciate the extent to which there are people in this country who will sell us out. Sell us out. Sell out everything that we represent. You know what the One Corridor is about? It runs to the heart of our national anthem. We who built a nation here so far, so good, on racial equality, as it says, every creed and race finds an equal place. They find method in their politics to say and to tell foreigners to come and help them, because black people don't think very much of themselves and they don't like to vote. But the Indian population votes very high. So the way to do is not to convince them to come with us, but you go into the corridor with some One Corridor movement to suppress the votes of black people in Trinidad and Tobago. Exactly what's happening in America. Exactly. I mean, did you ever think that we would put ourselves in that situation in Trinidad and Tobago? This One Corridor is not about getting votes for the UNC, it's about suppressing PNM votes in the East-West Corridor. And they take your money to pay for that, because I'll tell you something, Prakash and the COP could say they didn't pay for it, because the UNC paid for it. And it was paid for through the state enterprise sector. And in the subsequent discourse, I will show you exactly how much, who got it, and where they paid it. Paid for it because Cambridge Analytica and SCL said they were paid. Why would they lie? But you would have seen all kinds of strange monies being paid in the state enterprise sector to people who you could ask, what was this for? And of course, from the office of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. At a future time, you will get those details. But the bottom line is, we have in Trinidad and Tobago a problem, and that problem is crime. We are having to attack the crime problem from many quarters. One of those quarters is trying to restrict the amount of firearms on the street and those who are willing to use those firearms against the innocent and the not so innocent population. And this is not our idea. This isn't our idea. The police were the ones that came to the parliamentarians and said to the parliament, bail is too easily available. And if I may be critical of the judiciary, because they are always critical of us in the executive, sometimes you get the impression that members in the judiciary don't know what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Because people appear before them and all of a sudden they become bleeding hearts for the criminals who will kill you without batting an eyelid. When a young man or a young woman gets a gun illegally and goes off on a crusade of crime, they didn't go to be an altar boy or an altar girl. They have automatically made themselves a criminal, and at the first opportunity, they will kill you because the last thing they want is a witness, or if you stand in the way. So firearms are killing off people in this country like flies. Mr. Hines told you that's 1,300 people in Laventille in 10 years. That's 130 in 1 year every year. Picture. I had to go to a funeral in Tobago the other day. My friend and his wife, I'm sitting there in the church, and I'm literally, I can't believe where I am, because all my memories are of him and us growing up together as poor boys in Tobago, happy as ever, but having a future and working towards it. Husband and wife killed. And of course, there are those in our society among us, whether it's knife, gun, stone, or simply choking you by the neck, have no problem, because life doesn't mean that much to these people anymore. We just happen to be living in that time. And of course, the police is saying to us, it was Commissioner Stephen Williams who made that representation. We in the opposition, like we've done before, we supported 84% of the legislation brought by Kamala Prasad-Bissessar under my leadership. 84 out of 100 of what they brought, they had the support of the UNC and for the PNM. And for one reason, because we of the PNM, we are not in this for ourselves. We are in it for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So once the measure was to benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we did our duty, whether we are in government or in opposition. But not them. Whistleblowers, no protection for whistleblowing, because they know that if they support that, somebody who knows something that the population should know might talk, and they take personal umbrage at that. We are going to the parliament now with the bail bill on Wednesday. Everybody in the Senate except the 6 UNC members, every other person in the Senate. Our Constitution gave 9 people, not representing any political entity or party, to go there and hold a candle to the rest of the country and to the parliamentarians and vote with the same weight like parliamentarians. The 9 of them voted for that bill in the last go-around just before the end of the term. Normally, the vote took place very close to the end of the term. Under our parliamentary rules, the term must end and it reopens in September. In that intervening period, huge flare-up of the gunmen, commando gunmen, behaving as though we are Iraq or Syria, killing one another and killing the innocents. We couldn't sit and have vacation while there's a bail bill, which could, if passed, restrict them. If you restrict one person or one firearm, you could have saved lives. It is not going to put an end to crime in this country. It will not stop killing in this country. But in instances, every time it applies, you would have chipped away at somebody or something. I know many of you in this Western District, you know that there are gangs in this area, and every gang worthy of the name has shooters. Their idea of a job is to go and kill somebody at the instructions of others, sometimes for a small fee. That is what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. And starting with a government that refused to put vessels out in the ocean to prevent firearms from coming in this country. They start with that, you know. The first policy of the UNC was to cancel our coastal protection because we didn't need it. We needed the money, so they canceled the contract and take back the money. Of course, we have to go back now and do it over years later. But in the meantime, routeways and pathways for guns coming into this country have been established, and we move from all revolvers to new 7-shooter pistols to 15-round pistols to now AR-15s and Bushmasters, because each criminal wants a bigger gun than his neighboring criminal. And Venezuela next door have an endless supply. And they want us to close the borders, close the borders. They went and bought a vessel called the Nelson. You know where the Nelson came from? After they stopped the contract and took back the money for the brand new Coast Guard vessels, when shame and your voice was being loud in Trinidad and Tobago, they went to Britain and they buy something called the Nelson from the Royal Navy scrapyard. The Nelson came here, could not be used by the Coast Guard, because the speed of the Nelson was half that of any other vessel around Trinidad and Tobago. So it became a holding station somewhere in Chaguaramas and sometimes even Port of Spain. That's what they bought. But we are doing differently, because we are not only building a new society, we are strengthening and protecting the borders of Trinidad and Tobago. Our vessels are under construction. We have 2 modern Coast Guard vessels under construction, and one of these days, when they are completed, they will arrive here to join the battle against those who will penetrate our borders. There's no other solution to that. We appointed a commissioner of police. Hear them now. Griffith alone can't do the fight crime. Whoever said Griffith was hired to fight crime alone? That's the kind of dotishness you hear from them. You who wouldn't appoint a commissioner of police and go to the parliament out of the mouth of the attorney general and say that you are happier not having Stephen Williams confirmed as a commissioner of police, because if he acting every 6 months, he get an acting, he will work harder because you want to get a job. That was the UNC's position in the parliament. It's on record in the parliament, talking that foolishness. And today, when the country is awash with criminality of all kinds. Imagine when Hines went down went to see his constituents during the flooding. During the flooding in Beetham, a couple of them went and kicking water in Hines and threatening him. They were UNC operatives. And the chairman, we have a few soldiers in that area, a few soldiers. That's how they see them, you know. Black people fighting over minimum wage, disrespectful and criminalized. They see them as soldiers. And of course, working with Cambridge Analytica and SCL to split the country into those who vote massively and those who don't vote. And all of you know what I'm talking about. You come to me to tell me, if I don't get this and I don't get that, you didn't give me this and you didn't give me that. Well, you always get from the PNM. The first thing you get from the PNM, even if your name is not written on it, your country's name is stamped on it, and it's good governance in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, all of a sudden, they could find somebody in my constituency to go on their platform. They say birds of a feather flock together. I represent everybody in Diego Martin West, even those you find if you turn over a stone. But you, the people of Diego Martin West, you've asked me to represent you. And as we do so, the vote you give me in Diego Martin West is only 1 of 41. We go to the parliament on Wednesday. Why do we have to make this case that you need to restrict bail for people who are murdering other people in this country with impunity? Who are these UNC people who we have to convince that that is a reality? But no, they see the murder rate. They see the blood flow as a political advantage. Let the criminals run. Let the criminals do what they want. Let the murder rate go to record levels, because then it becomes a useful political tool. That's what it is. It's as simple as that. So on Wednesday, all those of you who elected those 18 UNC people, you don't talk to them and tell them to go to the parliament and use your vote to vote against the criminal element. And then one of these days, when you get confronted by one who could have been denied bail, don't call the police. Because they have a habit. They have a habit. When water more than flour, they call the police. Of course, we have other matters before the parliament. We have an Evidence Act. You know, in this country, the last thing anybody wants to be is a witness. Our entire judicial system is based on evidence and witnesses giving evidence. So once they could terrorize the witness, the judicial system is virtually useless. So as other countries would have done, we are saying in our Evidence Act that we are going to protect witnesses by allowing witnesses to come before the court to be cross-examined, but to do so in a way that does not expose them to the killing criminal element. Other people have faced the same thing we are facing now, and they have solved it in that way. So your testimony can be given. You can be identified with your testimony. You can be cross-examined by the defense or lawyers, but you'll be protected from the criminal who the evidence is aimed at. The UNC want no part of that. So they want no part of the bail bill. You want no part of the Commissioner of Police. You want no part of the Evidence Act. You want no part of the Anti-Gang Act. What then is your response to the criminal element? Put Anti-Gang as Prime Minister. We are losing, as told by experts, 40% of the required tax to be collected. And I'm not here talking about new taxes. I'm talking about the current tax laws allow a certain amount of tax to be collected. We're losing 40% of that because of an inefficiency in our collection system. Experts have told us, we've listened to their advice, and we've said that we can rectify that largely by a revenue authority. We are in the parliament with a bill to create a revenue authority with full powers to do that. The UNC want no part of that. We have in the parliament with the gaming bill. The same bill that lay laid in the parliament, saying that they want, with our support, we were in the opposition then, to bring casino gambling under law, to control casino gambling. The identical bill that they brought to the parliament. Election comes, PNM is now the government. They want no part of it. They wanted to go to committee. They want to examine their own bill and criticize their own bill. It goes to committee. He has been there for God knows how long. Them examining himself. I blame him but for that. Because he is the one who told them, ask yourself. When they was asking all them stupid questions, ask yourself. So they decide to ask themselves about the bill, the gambling bill. And we are going to bring it to the parliament, and it's going to go to a vote. And as far as they've said, they will not vote for it. Wait and watch. We have another bill coming there, and that bill is most important. Campaign finance reform. I gave you the assurance that before the next general election, this country will pass campaign finance reform. The Attorney General, on my instructions, having done the work, advises me that they are very close to completing such a bill. And when it is done, it will be put out for some public comment, not forever. And based on your comment, we might amend it and adjust it, and we take it to the parliament. And if it requires a special majority, I know they will not vote for it. But at least we will pass a bill which can be passed by the PNM majority. There will be campaign finance reform. Ladies and gentlemen, you see all this obstruction in Trinidad and Tobago? This thing about nobody really is in charge and let it be done in Woodford Square because you can't have the minister in charge or the government in charge and so on and so on. That is beginning to hurt us very badly. Trinidad and Tobago, in the eyes of those who are in a position to invest at the business level in particular, those who come and invest in oil and gas, they could only do it here because the oil and gas is here. But others who want to invest in business that could be done elsewhere, given our behavior and given the obstructionism taking place in our parliament, the reduction of authority of the government that can't make decisions in your interests, but being encouraged to have this everything is a long drawn-out process, you take part in a system of governance that says it's representative government. You elect people to represent you for a certain period of time. If they don't represent you well, at the end of the period, you vote them out of office. It's the only power you have in this country. But those who are investing with options elsewhere have been increasingly moving their investments. Go and find out how much Trinidad and Tobago investment go into Grenada, St. Lucia, Jamaica. And when you inquire as to why they're doing that, as against investing in Trinidad and Tobago, in which they profess to have confidence, they tell you it is too difficult to get decisions made in Trinidad and Tobago. The system of decision-making in Trinidad and Tobago is overprotective of the perfect. Even the government suffers from that because the general attitude is that you can't approve anything. Let me give you a living example that I know personally. My grandfather in Tobago worked on a piece of land. My father worked on it. I obtained the land in 1975. We were all farming on that land. I grew up on that land. I decided to do a little farming on the land, by which time we had an environmental management authority. Land that we grew up on, barbed wire is on the land. I want to raise some sheep. I had to go to the EMA. I there sweating, cutting bush, planting grass. Man come and shine shoe and press seam on the pants and telling me I can't do it. I don't have EMA approval. I applied for the approval. And of course, there was none to be had because the grass that I would plant to feed the sheep will create a fire hazard. You laugh at that? I had to abandon the project. Lost tens of thousands of dollars in it. Luckily, I maintained an interest in farming. I came back to it 8 years after. I restarted it because things do change. Times change. Today I have almost 500 sheep in Tobago, and for the first time, Tobago is exporting sheep to Trinidad. Left to the EMA alone, not one lamb would have been there. Government going to build a road, new road. It is the only road in the history of Trinidad and Tobago that had every single approval before the job was started. You think that stopped them? They questioned every decision in the court, all the way to the Privy Council. Obstruct the project for a year, cost us millions of dollars, lose the case. But I could report to you that the road is under construction now. Under construction. We are improving the Toko Road from Valencia, going towards this Anigandi Toko Road. We have 3 contractors on the existing road, upgrading the road so it can be safer and more economic. They're going to court to stop that. And trying to tell you that that is in your interest. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't correct these arrangements, crapo, smoke, or pipes, Because there are people in this country who are living well off buttered bread and offering you your bread buttered with lard. And if you don't identify them, they will hand us to the likes of those who we've experienced before. I hear one of them called Jolene Johnson invited me to Untitled to come and run against her because she's going to mash me up. Miss John, I live and I will die in Diego Martin West. But as for Lahoketa Talparo, that is a matter for the people of Lahoketa Talparo. People in Talparo, that's a matter for you. We will make sure that you are properly informed. We are opening our campaign in Chaguanas next August because we're fighting them in the east, we're fighting them in the west, we're fighting them in the center, fighting them in Tobago, because we intend to protect the interests of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we have a sacred duty. We owe it to Eric Williams and the founders of this party to ensure that when our country is threatened the way they threaten us with Cambridge Analytica and SCL and all other threats, that the knight in shining armor in our blazing red is the people's national movement. And that is why today, we could tell you without fear of contradiction that the only political party whose statements are statements of facts and truth that you should take as important, because democracy is only going to survive where you, the people, want fact and truth. Because once lies can represent or be presented as truth, as Cambridge Analytica would have done around the world, you, not knowing what is fact from fiction, you could make decisions not knowing exactly what you have done. So all those who talked about they're Democrats and they're defending this and they're defending that, you let them feed you a package of lies and let them tell you that that is fact. And you looking on your phone and receiving information not knowing who is giving it to you. And then you make a decision. And then you end up, after the decision, with them as government of Trinidad and Tobago again. And only then you would realize that something very terrible would have happened. So people of Trinidad and Tobago, all of these are the assignments that you give us. I welcome this new executive to carry on the PLM tradition in Diego Martin West as we spread it out to every constituency in Trinidad and Tobago. And when we say we're building a new society, it's because we are rejecting what we have experienced. And we are taking responsibility for the future, not doing things the same way. I said to you before, what we are aiming at is a situation where when you see a police officer in uniform, you must be confident that that officer has passed a certain standard and is honest and full of integrity. When you go to a public service office to transact business, you must be confident in the registry that that officer is not the agent of somebody on the outside, tearing out pages and making false deeds. When you go to the court, you must be confident to know that the officer in the bench with the power to say yea or nay to you is one that is not corrupted or politically impaired. When you go to the hospital, you must know that the nurse and the doctor are not guilty of thieving medicine in the hospital and disregarding their responsibility to the patient. When you send your child to school, you must know the teacher has an interest in that child and you are supporting that teacher, and you, the parent, you are providing support to the teacher. That is our society that we're working towards. And the only political party with a record of that kind of movement forward with a vision for Trinidad and Tobago is the People's National Movement. And we expect that there are those, because of that, will see us as required to be removed. And that is why Kamala Prasad-Bissessar would have taken that trollop and put her on the UNC platform to come and accuse me of being an advocate for domestic violence and a pedophile interfering with her child in a conversation somewhere in this place. There's no level beneath which they will not sink. But we see those as our challenges. Those are the hurdles we have to overcome. And we know what our mission is and who it is for. Our mission is to keep improving this country even in the most difficult of circumstances, and also to do it in the best interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So we have no problem whenever we meet like this, we have no problem whatsoever, night or day, to say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.